Hey, what's up, guys? You're listening to the It Takes a Village podcast. I'm Ashley, your host. This is where the struggles are real, the callings are heavy, the kids are sticky. We come together because it takes a village, and this is your tribe. Hey guys, what's up? We're back at it today, and I'm super excited to release this episode to you because you guys get to listen in to me chat with Kristen from stepmomming.com. And obviously, as her website suggests, we're going to talk about being a stepmom and this whole stigma around divorce and what a stepmom's role can really be in the family, and that it doesn't have to be this societal conflict that everybody puts on the situation. Or, you know, when you come in as a stepmom, it's like, oh, like just in the movie Cinderella, for example, there's the evil stepmother. The stepmom is not always, you know, the fun favorite character. And so it's really neat to be able to talk to Kristen because she actually shares her own personal story about how she came into the stepmom role and how they are co-parenting and doing life together. And she has tons of good tips for you guys who are in the same situation. So let me stop talking. Let's get to this episode with Kristen. Here we go. Hey, Kristen, I am super excited to have you on the It Takes a Village podcast today to talk about co-parenting. And I'm really excited for you just to honestly just share your journey and share your the things that you've been through, the things that you've learned, and also just about how you've navigated this relationship with your stepdaughter's mother and all that. So I'm really super excited to have you on. So thanks for being here.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm really excited to talk about it. I'm very open about my stepmom relationship, and what's really unique about us is that we have a very positive relationship to the point where my stepdaughter's mom actually lived with us for 3 months. So we have a very unique relationship and experience. So it's always nice to have kind of a platform to share it with other people that it's possible to co-parent and to get along with your stepchild's mom.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that kind of society for like ever has always kind of painted this picture of step parents as being like this evil thing, or, you know, like this very complicated, very negative thing. And so before we get into all that, I would love for you to kind of start at the beginning. Like, what is the genesis of like how this all got started, and you know, tell everybody a little bit about you and how this all came to like fruition.
Okay, so I started dating my husband several years ago, my now husband, and I had dated a single dad before that, and I had a drastically different experience then. So the mom, like before I could meet her daughter, wanted to meet me, and she drilled me, and she had a list of questions, and she needed to meet me a few times before I could meet her daughter, and I needed to be with my boyfriend X amount of time before I could meet her or whatever. And then when I met my now husband, his child's mom, like, basically didn't care. She was just kind of like, I mean, she didn't care, but she was just kind of removed from the situation. So I was spending a lot of time with her daughter and a lot of time with her ex-husband, and she didn't really care to know me. And it was about 9 months into our relationship that I finally was like, okay, I'm getting serious about you. I am spending one-on-one time with her daughter. I have got to meet this woman. She needs to know me. She needs to know that I'm serious about you, and I'm serious about your daughter, and that I'm a good person. I want her to know that I'm a good person.
Yeah.
And because if I were in her shoes, I would want to know that. I wouldn't want there to be just this person out there who's spending time with my child that I don't know, that I don't know anything about her. So we asked her if she would meet me at pickup that day, and she said yes. So 9 months into our relationship, I'm finally meeting her, and she was like, I look back now and I realize that she's just shy and she's an introvert and it's uncomfortable for her. But she was so standoffish, and it just totally threw me off because I had craved meeting the woman behind the name for so long that it just left me feeling unfulfilled. We ended up getting my stepdaughter enrolled in softball and swimming lessons, and whenever we were at these extracurriculars, we would just sit on like opposite sides of the bleachers and kind of exchange pleasantries, but that was about it. And then she got pregnant with her second daughter, and ended up at about this time serving us paperwork to modify the support and the custody agreement. But she had like that day she had been so nice to our faces, and it was actually, I thought it was a turning point for us. I remember talking to my husband after the event and being like, oh my gosh, like that was so pleasant with both her and her husband, and that was really great. I really liked that. I feel like this is us moving in the right direction. And then a couple hours later we got served at the front door by a stranger. And so that was definitely the low point for us. I'm not even afraid to say it today. I hated her. And it was like everything she did just gnawed at me. If and it felt so personal. Just because you're having another baby doesn't mean that like our time with our daughter should be taken away. And it's so hard as a stepmom to not take everything personally because you are so invested in such an intimate role it's almost unnatural that you are coming in as a mother role to somebody else's child. But it's so hard to not take things so personally, and I definitely struggled with that so much more than I even really like to admit in the beginning.
Yeah.
So we fought for a few months, and then my husband one day took her aside at a softball game and was like, can we just talk about this? Can we try to figure out what's best? Can we try to rework the agreement? And they did. They talked about it and sat down, just the two of them, and really worked out what seemed best. And of course, they went back and talked to their partners. And he and I talked about things from our side, and they talked about things from their side. And before anything was firmly agreed on, but we all kind of worked together to what would be best for my stepdaughter. And it was a huge turning point for me to stop seeing it as my time or our time and start seeing it as my stepdaughter's time, because that's truly what it is. And that's the heart of co-parenting, is that you're not thinking selfishly anymore. You're thinking only about what's best for that little girl or your son or all of your kids or whatever it is. And that was a huge point for us. So that happened in October was when we really started talking about this agreement. And it took us probably about a month or two to firmly agree on something. Then in January, so this is about a year and a half after I had met her the first time. In January, she had started a blog, and she and I would always like exchange pictures of my stepdaughter when she was with us or with them or whatever. We would just send pictures so that we could see her when we were missing her. And she ended up just texting me one day about her blog, and she was struggling with some things, and it was such a foreign language to me. I did not understand like SEO and page views. It's just this whole other world. And I was like, well, I don't understand that, but I did just get my MBA, so let me kind of talk through business with you. And I gave her some ideas. And by the end of the day, we had formed a partnership, and I was joining the blog with her. And
Wow.
I have to like sit back and laugh because we were just so not in that place. I mean, I told you just a few months before I had hated her. And it was such a learning curve for me, and a lot happened in just those few months. But I joined the blog. We blogged together for about a year. And just last November, Amanda decided to leave the blog because she wanted to pursue a couple other passions. And she's running another business, and we're still good friends. I just saw her yesterday. She did move in with us last year. But we ran the blog, and it was basically just a co-parenting blog. So let's talk about how to co-parent and what it means to co-parent, and how I accepted my daughter's stepmom, and how I was able to communicate with my stepdaughter's mom, and talking through some of those really hard topics, because it's not normal that the stepmom can really have such a frank conversation with the mom. And by blogging together, we were able to have some of those really tough conversations, and then we could publish them so that other people could have those tough conversations.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, is that it seems like this random, strange, collaboration between you guys turned into this amazing, awesome way that you could find a way to communicate, at least for her, especially if she's introverted. I know like writing things out is easier, and
Yeah.
so that was probably easier for her to say like, this is what I'm feeling, and for you to say, this is what I'm feeling, and for you guys to actually have those conversations. And I wonder, like, as you were telling me the story of you guys, for, how initially she was standoffish and she didn't know, how to approach you, and, you were wanting to get to know her and stuff. I wonder, just like, and, in the beginning we had talked about how society kind of shapes this idea of what step parenting is. And, she was nice to you in person, but then you got served papers like an hour later. It's like we assume because we're in this situation and society has shown us this way we act, like this is how you do it, that's what you do, even though like that's not what your heart wants to do. That's not what you would naturally do personally. You're just
Right.
following these steps. And so I wonder, like, if you guys had been in a situation, where you had been able to read a blog like the one that you guys created, if you would have approached it differently, you know what I mean? To where,
Oh, absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah. I run a Facebook group with lots of different stepmoms who kind of have the same sort of mission and vision as I do. And we've been talking about that a lot recently about if you knew what you knew today, what would you do differently in the beginning? And there's so much I would have done differently. And I wouldn't have let it get to 9 months of me loving her daughter and spending time with her daughter without her knowing me and knowing what I stand for. And I would have said from the very beginning, I want you to know that my goal for this position is for me to supplement your role in my house. And
Mm-hmm.
this is not at all me trying to come into your place or to replace you, because that is not at all what a stepmom should do. And I
Yeah.
feel like any mom, any co-parenting divorced mom should have that peace of mind from the very beginning.
Yeah, that was one of my questions that I wanted to ask you is, what is some advice that you have for a mom who's coming into that stepmother role, who wants to be included, but then, at the same time doesn't want to cause conflict or feel like she's overstepping? How can she navigate, like, kind of, I guess, like finding her place within the family?
Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah, well, obviously, yeah.
uh, and unfortunately there's not a one size fits all. I can't tell you this is exactly how you need to act and this is how she's going to respond.
Yeah.
But my best advice is just to communicate and to sit her down and say, no matter how awkward this is, because we can both fully acknowledge that this is awkward.
Yeah.
I'm helping you raise your daughter, and I know this is not what you planned. You did not plan to have to share your daughter. So I respect that this is difficult for you, but I also need you to respect that this is difficult for me. And I'm trying to come into this role and to just do the best I can.
Yeah.
You want to talk about house rules. So what are things that are really important to her? What are things that are really important to you and your boyfriend or husband, whatever his role may be at that time? You want to talk about your parenting thoughts. I mean, your mission, your code, whatever the word is. What is important to you? What do you stand for as a parent? So I stand for education, and that was something I made very clear. We don't do a lot of screen time in our house. We'll do some and we'll watch movies together, but as far as just letting my stepdaughter do her own thing on an iPad, that's not really something that we advocate for in this house. I'll sit down with her and I'll play an educational game, or we'll sit together and we'll do a worksheet, or I'll teach her through something because that's something that's very important to me. And I'm not pushing that on mom. I'm not at all telling her this is how it needs to be. I'm just letting her know that this is something I stand for.
That's really
Talking
good
through some
advice.
of your insecurities is probably like my final advice. Something I struggled with so much more than anything else when I became a stepmom or I started dating my now husband was being a second wife. And it was excruciating. And I realize that's kind of an intense term, but it was like everywhere I looked, there was a reminder of her. I would go to my mother-in-law's hair salon, and there was a canvas up on the wall of the whole family, including the ex-wife, because she was part of the family at the time. Or I would go to my in-laws' house, and there were pictures up. Or I don't know, it felt like everywhere I turned, I was seeing her, or a reminder of her, and I found myself questioning it. Am I cooking as nutritious of meals? Am I tucking her into bed at the right time? Am I doing things the way that she used to do? Am I as funny as her? Am I as pretty as her? Like ridiculous insecurities that came out.
Yeah.
And I finally was able to just talk to her about them and tell her that I was really struggling. And she had no idea. And that kind of blew my mind. Like, how could you not know that I am so insecure about coming after you?
Mm-hmm.
So having those tough conversations from the beginning, I think would really help. And it's going to be uncomfortable. And I would suggest like laughing through it or having a glass of wine or a bottle.
Yeah.
But it's really important to actually sit and talk about it. When you just avoid it and you pretend it doesn't exist, it's not going to get any better.
Yeah. Did you have to talk to your in-laws about how you were feeling, about, seeing her everywhere and kind of feeling out of place? Like, how did that conversation ever come up, or?
Oh, it did.
Okay.
So it was actually my mother-in-law and I went to go get pedicures one day. And so we'd probably been together for like a year now, which means they had been apart for 2 or 3 years at that point. What had happened was I was helping my now husband move into his new house. And when I was unpacking his videos, I felt like that was like a really safe box. I can go through this box, I can unpack it and help him with his house. I ended up finding his wedding video in that box and had a complete meltdown.
Yeah.
So I was sharing this with my mother-in-law while we were getting pedicures one day. And she goes, I hadn't really thought about that. I wonder if I have any pictures up in my house.
And you're like, yes, you do.
You do. You have 8. There's 2 in the dining room and there's 4 up in the hallway or whatever. So
You're like, I know exactly where they are.
she was like, I am so sorry. She hadn't even thought about it because for so long that had been her family. So she didn't see it. I saw it. It stuck out to me, but they were just pictures on the wall. It was her family. So the next time I went over there, which was just a couple of days later because she lives around the corner, they were all taken down and there wasn't anything in their place yet. So it was obvious that she did it just for me. Mm-hmm. So I was really grateful for that. And luckily I have a very understanding mother-in-law and they have embraced me. Of course, they were cautious at first because they didn't want anybody to hurt their son again or their granddaughter.
Right.
But they have completely embraced me and I've been really lucky in that respect.
In your Facebook group with other moms who are going through similar transitions and similar relationships with their husbands and their ex-wives, have you encountered or guided any women through parents or in-laws who aren't as understanding, aren't as, empathetic towards a situation that you've kind of helped them navigate through? Okay, so let's go to plan B because, I feel like for you, I feel like that's such a blessing to have in-laws that understand and they're like, okay, whereas a lot of moms, I feel like, unfortunately, you're going to have either ex-wives who are unpleasant to deal with or not as open to the whole co-parenting thing, or family members. And I just wonder, how then do you and maybe you don't have the answer to that. Maybe just something we talk about. But I just feel like that would be a really tough situation to try to fit in somewhere where you don't feel like they're allowing you to fit.
It's really tough. The best advice I can give is to have your husband help you navigate that, because whether or not he wants to be in the middle, he's kind of there already.
Yeah.
And he needs to help you navigate that. He needs to be your advocate. And he brought you into this world and he needs to help you mesh with that world.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, that's really the best advice I have. Continue to be pleasant. Don't shut them out. I mean, maybe you would want to monitor how much time you spend with them because nobody wants to be in that situation.
Right.
But really, he needs to take the lead on acclimating you to that family.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. I think that this whole situation seems like it's going to be either at the beginning or possibly throughout for a lot of women, emotionally draining. And I feel like a lot of the times it's going to be calling you guys to be the ones who take the high road sometimes, or, cry about it. And then you'll have to start over again the next day. And, it's just, but I think it's amazing to see like how two moms can come together and put their differences aside and to put their opinions aside. And then, like you said, it's not about you, it's about the children and looking at it as like, this is their time, this is their life. And so, yeah, I think that's really amazing. Is there anything that you guys do now moving forward to help you and Amanda's relationship be healthy, or continuously be healthy to where you guys can get along and have this, I don't know.
Sisterhood.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's actually been a couple times in the last probably 2 months where we've kind of butted heads. So the first was when we were throwing my stepdaughter's birthday party. The last 2 years we've done a joint birthday party, which is so important for my stepdaughter because when I was growing up, I had divorced parents and I would have to like decide who was going to go to which party, and
That's so hard.
it's political and I don't like it and I don't want to put her in that position. So she should just be able to invite everybody that she loves and they should all be able to celebrate her at one gigantic party. So things were super busy for me at work because the company that I work for was going through a merger, and then with the blog and just trying to schedule everything. And so I just kind of like went into action and I started like buying plates and coordinating cupcakes and whatever. So just going into action one day, one afternoon, just getting everything done. And I was just kind of texting her as I was making updates and crossing things off the list. And for me, that's just how I work. I just go into action. But she saw it as me overstepping and trying to plan a party without consulting her. And so I had to take a step back and be like, I am so sorry. Please don't mistake my action for me trying to be controlling. I am simply just trying to get stuff done. I absolutely did not mean to exclude you, and like, let's take a step back. What can we do together? What do you want me to return? What do you want me to cancel? And we could step back and we could talk. She came over early before the party so we could make sure we were preparing together and decorating together. And then the second time was just last week, and it was about summer schedules. And I don't know if you know this about kids of divorced parents, but they like to play sides. So
I do not know, so tell me more.
So like, mommy won't let me do this, so she'll come to daddy's house. Say, Daddy, can I do this? Or,
oh, yeah.
Or she's super interested in something that mommy loves to do. So her mom is incredibly artistic, and she's very interested in artsy things when she's there. Or her stepdad is very much like a hands-on kind of guy. So she really wants to do Girl Scouts when she's at mommy's house. And when she comes over here, daddy's all about karate. So she wants to do karate. Or she and I watched an ice skating movie, and she just got it stuck in her head that she wanted to do ice skating. And we live in Texas, so ice skating isn't super popular here.
No.
But there were just a couple summer activities she wanted to do. So I had planned them all out on the calendar. If she were to do all three, this is what it would look like. And I sent a picture of it in our group message with all 4 parents. I was like, guys, what do you think? Should we let her do all of them? Should we, do this? Should we do that? Talking through the schedule. And Amanda was like, I feel like you guys are just trying to do the parenting and that we're just a house she visits. And I really wish we could talk about all these things. I was like, I'm really sorry you feel that way. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to have that conversation. So tell me what I can do to make this better. And it got kind of heated. And so that night I was like, you need to come over for dinner. And so I cooked dinner and we all 4 got together, and her youngest daughter and Krista, they were all there, and we all had dinner together and we talked and we hugged it out. And it's just important for us, like, when things get too difficult in the shared parenting part of our world, that we come back to being friends and that we see the good in it.
Yeah.
We see that it's not about me trying to get her to do what she's told me she wants to do for summer, because I realize she tells mom different things she wants to do. So let's talk about what she wants to do. Whatever she wants to do at your house, let's put that on the calendar and then figure out which things we actually want her to do. And then just for me, it's so important to assume positive intent. So if we're arguing about it, well, what is the positive intent behind this? Because my intention was never to overstep or to say this is how it's going to be. And so it's important to assume that positive intent. And then when you don't understand what's happening and you can't see that positive intent behind it, that you have the discussion, because Amanda couldn't see my intention behind it being positive. So she had to ask me, like, she had to call me out on it. I don't see what's happening here. We need to talk about it.
That's good. Yeah, I think that that's good. And I wouldn't even know. Our kids do that already. And but we're in the same house, so we can quickly like catch it, you know. But I can't. So how do you navigate for other parents who are like, you know, in that separate households, but the kids are playing the game of like, well, I'm just not going to tell them that dad already told me no, so I'm going to go over here and ask, you know. How do you guys navigate that balanced discipline and balanced parenting dynamic?
Communicate. I know I sound like a broken record. For something that's minor, right? So if she wants to go to the movies every Friday night and every Friday night is mom's night, then I'm not going to pick that battle. Like if she thinks that it's okay for her to go to the movies and she's going to put the bill forward or whatever, I'm not going to pick that battle. But if it's something about her safety or something that I think is inappropriate, if I don't want her having a sleepover with her boyfriend when she's 14, and I feel very strongly that that's inappropriate and it's not something that we should allow her to do, then we have to have that conversation with mom. We have to communicate across the households so that we're making sure that we're staying firm on those things that matter.
Yeah.
And then at the point when you disagree, because it's going to happen, there was something on Facebook a couple months ago where this had happened, and the girl had gone to mom's house for her birthday and mom had gotten her highlights, but dad was very against dyeing her hair. So when she went back to dad's house, dad shaved her head.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, like a really extreme example, but if it's something you feel that strongly about, you need to have the conversation, because this can't happen. You can't just shave your 16-year-old daughter's head.
Yeah.
And
that seems like the action of two parents that weren't communicating. And so, yeah.
And so no matter how uncomfortable it is, no matter how much you disagree. I mean, growing up, my parents hated each other. They still hate each other to this day. No matter how difficult it is to communicate, if there's something you feel that strongly about that you would go so far as to shave your daughter's head, you have to have the conversation and make sure you're in alignment.
Yeah. Do you think that, and I'm assuming the answer is going to be yes, because I feel like you like learn from the ways that you were parented, and and you take the negative, and when you become a parent, you're like, I'm going to do the exact opposite.
Yeah.
So do you feel like you, having been from, you know, a divorced family, now you can look at going into being, you know, a stepmom in a different light than if you would having not grown up in a home like that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I can give you so many examples, but I'll just give you two.
Okay.
Growing up, my parents were constantly talking about each other and never in a positive way, ever. And so it was like when I was with my mom, I had to talk poorly about my dad. And when I was with my dad, I had to talk poorly about my mom, because that's how I bonded and got attention with my parents. And that is not, I mean, my parents divorced when I was 2.
Oh my
That
gosh.
is not a positive way to grow up. And so I will never speak ill of Amanda in front of Krista. I don't care what I disagree with. I mean, even when I hated her, I would not talk poorly about Amanda in front of her, because that is not my place, and that is a way to, like, for sure screw up your kid. So I don't do it. Obviously, because I don't want to screw her up. The other example of how I don't want to parent was my 2nd grade picnic. We're taking it way back here. I had my mom and my stepdad and my dad and my stepmom. And the only parent who was going to be able to make it to my second grade picnic was my stepmom, because everybody else was working. So I like showed up to the park where we were having the picnic, and I was waiting for her because she hadn't gotten there yet. And she ended up getting there about 10 minutes late, and she got out of the car and was only there long enough to tell me that she and my daddy were getting a divorce, and then she left.
Oh my gosh.
And I was a second grader left bawling in a parking lot, and like my teacher and my friends were all just kind of like, what's going on? And I became the center of attention at what was supposed to be like this big party. And I will never forget how that made me feel. And for an adult to be so selfish and to want so badly to get back at another adult that she would use a child like that. I could never use my stepdaughter like that. I could never. And well, I guess along the same lines, it might be a third story. I'm sorry, I lied. She left me a couple things when she left the house. And there was a note that she signed it that she loved me. And I remember being so surprised because I didn't think she loved me. So that's just one more thing I've taken with me. Like, I make sure to tell my stepdaughter that I love her. And it's not a curse that her parents were divorced. It just means that she has twice the love now. And she actually said that to me the other day. She was like, the only thing that I tell people about myself is that I have 4 parents, and I have twice as many families, and I just have so much love in my life.
Aww.
I was like, that's a great thing to brag about.
Yeah, for sure. Because I think that a lot of the times if it's done poorly, then the kids feel like it's a part of them, or there's something wrong with them, and they can't look at it as a gift, or and that's so unfortunate for them to have to carry the burden that like adults should be carrying, and so that's tough.
Absolutely.
What do you think was I want to ask you, what do you think is like the biggest myth that you hear about co-parenting all the time, or that the world tends to think about co-parenting, that you want to like scream from the mountaintop that it's not true?
I am so devoted to a message that mom and stepmom can get along and that they should be working on the same team. I mean, I just hate this assumption that mom and stepmom have to hate each other.
Yeah.
And that stepmom is somehow incapable, because I'll introduce myself as a stepmom, and then they'll go, oh, like they're
Oh my gosh.
like that tells you something about me, right? And it doesn't. I'm a good person, and I am a good mom, and for you to assume that now means something it just blows my mind. And it also, so for my birthday last year, we all went to breakfast. So me and my husband and my stepdaughter and Amanda and her husband and her other daughter, we all went to breakfast. And the waitress was like, oh, is this your sister? And I was like, oh, no, that's my husband's ex-wife, and this is her mom. And she was like, what? You guys are friends? And she was so puzzled, but she was like, you guys don't hate each other? Huh, that's awesome. And I wish more people thought that was awesome. And I want that to be the norm. I want us to be able to be adults and to put aside all of the hurt and the anger and the control. I mean, you have to release control to co-parent. And if more people can do that, then it's going to be better for these children of divorce, because divorce is becoming the norm. So let's figure out how we can raise our kids in spite of it.
Yeah, for sure. So you guys went from creating this blog together to now you run it on your own, and it's called stepmomming.com if anybody else wants to check it out. And you write about stepmomming and co-parenting and just momming. And so now that you've been through a couple years of this and you've grown and you're now writing about it freely and on your own, what do you think that co-parenting has taught you thus far that maybe was something you were surprised about?
Oh, that's a good question. I'm going to have to go back to control. I had this clear vision of what parenting was supposed to look like, and what the right mom did, and how she did things, and how, I mean, I had this checklist, and you don't do screen time and you only feed them organic or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
Like we've all kind of got that list. And I was super judgmental when I came into this because I was like, I'm sorry, your mom let you watch TV for how long? Or you went over to Nana's house and you didn't spend that time with mommy? Or just with like stupid examples that I'm embarrassed to think back on.
Mm-hmm.
But I was so judgmental, and I had to lose that control, and I had to really accept that co-parenting is about trusting your co-parent.
Mm.
And if you sit and think about what's happening at mommy's house for the week that they're not at your house, you're going to drive yourself nuts. And it's so not worth it because you have no choice but to trust your co-parent. I mean, you really don't. You cannot control her actions. You can try. You can try to tell her what to do, but that she's not going to listen to you.
Yeah.
I mean, really, she's not. And so I have always been a control freak. I have always been a perfectionist. Anything I do, I try my best to excel at. And co-parenting has taught me that it's not about being the perfect parent or judging the perfect parent. And it's all about doing what's right for your kids.
Mm-hmm.
And that does mean that you have to lose some of that control. Excuse me, but that's completely transformed my life when I learned that about co-parenting.
Yeah, I think that is common. Like, if you're a mom in any degree, like just whether it's comparing yourself to another person, comparing yourself to something on social media, and it's something that I've talked about a lot on here on the podcast is, we just struggle so badly with what the world tells us we should be like, or what our ideal perfect, quote unquote, perfect mom looks like, and that we set this bar that is so high for ourselves that only we expect from ourselves. Like our husband doesn't expect that from us, our kids don't expect it from us, and then we're beating ourselves up when we don't achieve those things. But yet, like, yes, our kids are just fine with us,
right,
being there with them. Like, they really don't care. And I feel like that is probably common in just any mom role, is dealing with, okay, I've got to let this idea go of I have to be all these things or I'm not a good mom.
Right.
Yeah. It's so hard.
It is. Why are we so hard on ourselves?
I have no idea. but yeah, I think that the thing that I've learned is, for me, what's helped me the most is to watch what I put into my life, who I'm spending time with, what I'm like, even the silly things like who I follow on Instagram, because I've been in times where I'll be scrolling and it's like woman after woman of these people that I'm comparing myself to, and they, it looks like every picture's from freaking Pinterest, and
yeah.
and so I'm like, I love them to death. I think that they're doing an awesome job on Instagram, but I just can't follow them because every time I look at their feed, I'm going, why can't I do that? Or why do I not look like that? Or why can't I get myself together like that? And so I think for me, it's being aware of those moments when I hear myself talking like that, and then being like, okay, I need to unfollow that person for a while because it's not good for me to continuously compare myself or put myself down over somebody I don't know. Like,
yes.
But yeah, it's hard for sure. So I wanted to, before we get into the last three questions, give you a moment to share where everybody can find you on social media, so so they can compare themselves to you. No, I'm just kidding. No, I know that you have some great resources for women who are in co-parenting situations or, taking on the stepmom role. And so I really want to give everybody listening an opportunity to find all the things that you write about, because you're super transparent. So where can everybody find you and follow you and get a hold of or find a space that's safe for them to talk about being in this situation?
Absolutely. Thank you. I am on Facebook at stepmomming, Instagram at stepmomming, Pinterest at stepmomming, Twitter at stepmommingblog. But most importantly, the safe space that I advocate for is the Facebook group Stepmomming Ain't Easy. And you can actually find it through my Facebook page if you need to. And that's why I really push my mission. And I don't condone stepmom bashing. I don't condone the judging in there. Like if somebody wants to vent, they're going to vent in a constructive manner and they're going to ask for feedback. They're not going to just bash. And we're going to be able to lift each other up because we're all kind of going through the same thing, but we're going to do it in a way that's helpful. And that's my favorite part of it all, really, is seeing the transformation. And we do this thing called Wins on Wednesday, where everybody can share a win that they've had that week. And it's the highlight of my week, seeing just tiny little wins that turn into huge wins. I love it.
Oh, that's awesome. It almost sounds like one of these just like awesome communities where I don't know, just like very very zen, and you're just like but I think that it's needed, especially since probably, like you said, there's times where it's super hard and you feel like you're in a position where you're always the one taking the high road or you don't fit in. And so I feel like you need that sort of support, because if you're dealing with it on your own or you don't have anybody to talk to who can relate, then it could be extremely really hard to go through by yourself. Yeah. And so, man,
if you're talking to somebody who isn't a stepmom and you try to vent about it, they're going to say, well, you knew what you were getting into, which is like the most dreaded phrase for any stepmom, because we had no idea. I had no idea what it meant. I thought it meant like I was going to be a mom and I was going to help raise this little girl and I was going to get to pack lunches and play Barbies. And that is so not what I signed up for. There's so much more to it. And so when I can give these women a place to talk to people who get it and who aren't going to say, you knew what you were signing up for, that makes it all worth it.
That makes me want to ask you, if you were to come across a woman who was like, hey, I'm dating this guy who, already has a child, like, would you give her any advice for her to be thinking about before she continues getting serious with the guy or the person or whoever, when there is when there is already a child involved and an ex-wife or ex-girlfriend involved?
Yeah. You need to know he's worth it, because you're going to have to fight. And my husband is 100% worth it. And I wouldn't do this for anybody. It's not, he meets 80% of your criteria. Like, no, he needs to be the man of your dreams, and he's worth it, and you'll fight for it. Raising a child with two parents already in the picture is difficult, and you need to be tough. And I would tell her to find her tribe, because I wish I had a tribe when I began this. And communicate. I know I'm a broken record. I really know that I'm sorry, but you have got to communicate with your partner, and especially with the ex, if you're going to make it through this, because you can't do it alone. And I thought I was Superwoman. I really did. I thought I could do it all on my own, and I could not.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how you sound like, I feel like I would have done all the wrong things, and you sound like you did a lot of you handled it really well, as where I would have not. So I feel like you're the right person to talk about this.
There was a lot of trial and error. I will not pretend that I was perfect, and I definitely made mistakes, but I've learned my lessons, and I feel like I'm in a good place today.
That's awesome. Okay, so I want to ask you the last 3 questions. The first being, if you could choose one of the most influential books that you've read, what would it be?
I love a book called No One's the Bitch. And I asked you beforehand if I was allowed to say that word, and you told me I could. It's written by a mom and a stepmom, Jennifer and Carol Mareem. And even though I started reading it after I was co-parenting and after I had kind of a relationship develop with Amanda, I still see things that I'm like, oh, that's good. And I've read it 3 times now. It's a super easy read. The women are very conversational. but it's another positive example of a mom and stepmom relationship.
And I'm going to make sure to link everything that you've talked about, especially your Facebook group, and then this book on the show notes page, so that way everybody is sure to find those resources, because I think they're really good. And then what is one way that you take care of yourself, that you love yourself? What is something that you do that fills you up, that is a form of self-care that you absolutely love?
I, every day in my journal, write 3 things that I'm grateful for. And they're very specific. So it can't just be, I'm grateful for my husband, I'm grateful for my stepdaughter. It has to be something specific that happened in the last 24 to 48 hours. And I have just seen that completely transform me. And it sounds so cheesy, but I went from having like kind of just every day was the same. I'm just kind of going through the motions to feeling completely fulfilled after doing it for about 2 weeks. And it really, I don't know, it's so cheesy. And I don't even really go back and read them. I just kind of track them. But that for me is a way that it takes me a minute, 2 minutes tops, and it completely fills me up and it rejuvenates me. And more often than not, I find that at least one of my 3 is about one of the women in my group, or somebody sent me an email or a Facebook message that has told me that my blog helped them put things into words or transform their relationship with mom. Or I even have one lady that I keep in close touch with who was able to completely modify her support agreement because they were able to work with mom. And that rejuvenates my soul. That gets me going, and it gives me purpose and drive.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, just like you had said, like when you guys were eating breakfast, there's a lot of people who just, it's still so surprising to that you can live in harmony with each other. Like everybody just assumes that once we separate, then it's this cold and, political thing that it now has to be, when it doesn't. And so
Right.
I think that you're helping a lot of women, and that is awesome, because in turn, that's changing a lot of kids' lives, that now they don't have to go through what you went through, and then my last question is, which, I mean, I'm assuming sort of ties in with all the things you've said, but if you could empower women in one way, what would it be?
I would remove that stigma of mom and stepmom hate. If I could do that, I would empower so many women. They would have such happier lives. If we didn't have to hate each other, how much happier would we be?
Hey guys, hope you enjoyed that episode. As always, make sure to subscribe so that way you don't miss the next episode. Thank you guys for listening. I really appreciate it. Catch you next time.